Good morning, good morning, good morning. I want to talk about Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter just revealed in a new report that they made $90 million in the year 2020. So, as Black Lives Matter not only talks about how much money they made, they also give some details and some information on what they did with this money and what they plan to do in the future. So, I want to talk about Black Lives Matter today, and I want to break down some of what's going on here, what I'm seeing. You guys know I'm a financial guy. So we're going to break all this down on drboystv.com, the home for intelligent Black people. So get comfortable. We're going to get started right now.
Here we are, clan the isms, cataclysm, great. Our people out here struggling, trying to make it in this state. Everybody out here doing it, but we the ones who late. Now family, we the ones who gotta delegate. Get that money in the power, never be fake. Stick to cosign for 3. What did he say? Create jobs, support our own. Educate the same and buy back your home. Got 3 degrees, triple 10. 3 PhDs, now we on the CNN. DBTV, let's talk about negligence. Ignorance is bliss, but we can turn it to intelligence. Believe none of what you hear, half of what you see. Let's break it down here on Dr. Boyce TV. Here we are.
Hey, what's going on, guys? My name is Dr. Boyce Watkins. Welcome to drboystv.com, the home for intelligent Black people. I want to talk about Black Lives Matter today. Black Lives Matter just revealed that they made $90 million in the year 2020. And also they are talking about what they did with some of the money, what they're going to do with the money, things like that. Now, before I get started, before we talk about everything with Black Lives Matter and all this other stuff, yesterday I had some audio issues. Give me a yes in the chat if you can hear me. Let me know if you can hear me. Give me a confirmation. I'm visiting Florida, and you know how it is when you go to other places and you get other people's Wi-Fi. It's like eating other people's cooking. You don't know what you're going to get. So I need to double check this. So give me a yes real quick in the chat if you can hear me and I'm coming through loud and clear and everything else. Okay, Larry Hurt, thank you very much. And Julie and Ronnie, I appreciate you. And Parker and T-Russ and Drip Josh. Josh is dripping today. All right, drip. Cuffy 63, Cool Keith, Selassie Dow, Beverly Johnson. Okay, great. Thank you so much for that. I appreciate that. So let's talk about Black Lives Matter and let's talk about this money. You guys know money's my thing. You know, I was a finance professor for 27 years, and actually it might be 28, 29, 30 years now. I keep saying 27, but I've been saying that for about 4 years, so I probably need to update my number. But either way, though, finance is my thing. That's what my PhD's in. That's what I understand on a microscopic level, and I can tell you that when I saw how much money Black Lives Matter was making, I said, okay. All right, so we have this community. It's got this racial wealth gap. We have a community that needs money. What are we doing with this money, right? Because y'all got the hookup, right? Y'all got the hookup with white folks, and for some reason that y'all tapped into that white guilt and into a tiny piece of the whole reparations package that we're owed. We're owed about $15 trillion. In case you want to know a reparations number to kind of lean on, it's about 15 trillion. So when you get into reparations debates with your coworkers at work who don't understand the details of it, just say, it's about 15 trillion. When can we expect payment? That's the question. When can we expect payment on those reparations? Because when you talk about Black Lives Matter and this whole movement, a lot of this is built on this fact that for 400 years, they have done terrible things to our people. And there really, you can't put a price tag on the amount of suffering they put us through. Even 15 trillion is not. I'll tell you. I'll confess with you. If they came with a $15 trillion package, that would be enough for me, as long as the details made sense. But the problem is, I don't even know if the government can even afford it. But I think they need to afford it. They need to find a way. So Black Lives Matter is an organization that a lot of people identify with. I don't. I'm not into joining the organization per se. I support a lot of the people that are in it, though. It's almost one of those things where in a war, you support the troops, but you don't support the war, right? Because you might know the war is bullshit. You might say, nah, you know what? Congress declared this war because they're really trying to go over there and get oil. Or they're really trying to go over there and protect their business interests. But I support soldiers who fight the war because maybe you think you're fighting the war because you're trying to be patriotic. So I look at Black Lives Matter in the same way. A lot of folks join Black Lives Matter because the title sounds good. Excuse me. They want to participate because who doesn't agree that Black Lives Matter? Who doesn't? You have the word black in it, and that sounds really cool, and everything else. I think that's great. But if you remember, if you guys remember, we went to their website, and there are those of us, and I'm not saying all of us, but those of us in the Black community who feel that Black families need to be restored. We think about Joe Biden's crime bill from the 1990s and how it took a lot of fathers out of the home, and we believe that those families should be restored. And if you went to the Black Lives Matter website, it really came off as an LGBT agenda in blackface. It was an LGBT feminist agenda in blackface. It was white liberalism in blackface. There was no mention of Black fathers and families and all this other stuff. Their number one goal is, as they stated at the top of their mission, was to destroy. I don't know if they said destroy or disrupt or dismantle the nuclear family. It was something crazy like that. And we were like, what? We were like, what? you know, and so I'm not here to hate on them. I mean, I'm gonna tell you the truth. I think that Black people. I mean, I think that sometimes we forget that there are Black people who are not heterosexual, who are not part of the nuclear family, right? We forget that that there are some Black folks that are in that LGBT space, etc. And I think they deserve love and support too. But I think you just got to make it clear in terms of what is what, right? What it is and what it ain't, right? Like T.I. said when he was giving his little confession video, he said, "This ain't that. This ain't that." So if you're looking for a Malcolm X-ish Black nationalist kind of agenda that supports the Black family and the things that many of us believe in, this ain't that. This ain't that. Black Lives Matter ain't really that. It doesn't mean it ain't something good. It doesn't mean it can't make progress, but this ain't that. So let's talk about the money. Let's break this down. Okay, so do me a favor, hit the thumbs up button, hit the share button, hit the subscribe button if you haven't done it yet. I want we have to have our own media so we can make sure our voice is heard. So I'm gonna share with you some of what Black Lives Matter is saying about the money. Now I'm on another screen on my phone. I'm real self-conscious now because last night, if y'all were in here, you saw that I made myself look real stupid because I didn't have audio for about 2 minutes, and I'm up here talking away, and y'all like, "Boys, we can't hear you." So if you could just give me a yes, another verbal confirmation that you can hear me. Okay, just say yes in the chat. Yes, I can hear you. Like, okay, come on, boys, hurry up, get started because I can hear you. Quit tripping. I'm just a little paranoid. Y'all gotta help me out. All right. So give me a yes in the chat if you can hear me. All right. So here's what Black Lives Matter is basically saying. Black Lives Matter, they have finally revealed what they're doing, what they're doing with that money that they raised last year. They raised $90 million last year in 2020, according to what they stated in this article. Now, let's start there. Let's start there. How many of you, when you heard 90 million from me, or maybe you read it, how many did you think that number was high or low? Give me a yes. Like, what do you think? High, right? Type high. If you think that, if you were like, wow, 90 million, man, that's a lot of money. Or type low if you were like, whoa, 90 million, that's it? Like, really? What? Y'all got more than 90 million. Y'all up here lying now. Yeah. I'm gonna put myself in the low category. When they said 90 million, I said, okay, and that's what y'all spent on toilet paper, right? Like where's the rest of the money at? Where's the money? I'm not gonna lie. 90 million, that sounds, that right there, that the article starts off shady when you say 90 million. Like, I'm not hating, I'm not trying to attack. This is not a diss video. But y'all playing games over there if you expect me to think that y'all made $90 million when let me just let me just give you some receipts so that I don't sound like a complete hater right now. Because y'all sound like y'all doing some blobbity blip double speak. Y'all doing some mush mouth right now because that 90 million sounds like an awfully small number for Black Lives Matter. Let me see here. So what I did to just try to make sure I wasn't going crazy was I did some research and and, and I was looking for some of Black Lives Matter's corporate donors. And let me see here. Let me. I remember I didn't when I was hearing about the donations to Black Lives Matter. I was hearing about big companies that were giving 10 million here, 15 million there, 5 million there. Let me see. I got to look it up. Let me see here. List of companies that supported Black Lives Matter. Okay, here we go. All right, so this is an article on CNET, and let me see if they got some numbers here because I pulled it up on my screen. I lost it here. Here we go. Here's just you know a sample. They said many of the large tech companies in the U.S. have donated substantial sums to the cause. Google has committed 12 million, while Facebook and Amazon are both donating 10 million. Now they said they donate this money to various groups though, that fight racial justice. Apple's pledging a whopping $100 million for a new racial equity and justice initiative. Um, Walmart said it will contribute $100 million over 5 years to create a center for racial equity. Now, mind you, these are not direct donations to Black Lives Matter, but I remember that there were massive numbers. EA Games, $1 million to racial equity. Now, now don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. A lot of Black organizations pulled in a ton of money from a lot of different places. Also, a lot of the donations to Black Lives Matter did not go to that particular national organization, right? A lot of that money was going to local chapters and things like that. So we can't sit here and pretend like that the main organization collected, $1 trillion. But I'm really curious to know the details of that $90 million number. I was hearing massive, massive, massive corporate numbers, and it just doesn't add up. Now, but again, I'm not accusing him of anything. I'm just saying I would like more details, so that we know that we're not on some Umar Johnson type stuff. You know what I mean? Like where you got all the money and nobody knows what you did with it, and you don't want to tell nobody. Because remember, the Black Lives Matter organization was very reluctant to even have the conversation about money. Their chapters rebelled. If you recall, there was an open letter written by a lot of the chapters, about 10 of them, I think, where they were like, this is some BS. Y'all over here caked out. You're getting all these big checks, and we're not getting that money. We got bills to pay, man. We're going through hell, and they're not. We're not getting the support that we think we deserve to receive, and so I would just say that there's a lot more that needs to be answered. I don't think that they've adequately answered the questions, but I think that they're trying to adjust to this sudden national prominence. But I don't think they've done it adequately. So let me read some of this to you. They said that the foundation, widely seen as a steward of the Black Lives Matter movement, says it took in over $90 million last year, according to a financial snapshot shared exclusively by the Associated Press. The Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation is now building infrastructure to catch up to the speed of its funding, and plans to use its endowment to become known for more than protests after Black Americans die at the hands of police or vigilantes. We want to uplift Black joy and liberation, not just Black death. We want to see Black communities thriving, not just surviving. Read an impact report the foundation shared with the AP before releasing it. This marks the first time in the movement's nearly 8-year history that BLM leaders have revealed a detailed look at their finances. The foundation's coffers and influence grew immensely following the May 2020 death of George Floyd, a Black man whose last breath under the knee of a white Minneapolis police officer sparked protests across the U.S. and around the world. That growth also caused long-standing tensions to boil between some of the movement's grassroots organizers and national leaders. The former, meaning the national leaders, went public last fall with grievances. Oh, sorry, scratch that. I said the former. I mean, that's the latter. Sorry about that. The former, meaning the national the local chapters, the local grassroots chapters, went public last fall with grievances about financial transparency, decision making, and accountability. So what that says right there, to me, my spidey senses tells me that they just basically don't want to really share information. Unfortunately, it fits into that category of feeling like their mindset is, look, almost like what a pimp tells a hoe. It's like, look, hoe, you get your ass on the corner and you go make that money. Don't be asking no questions. Don't be coming up in here with bachelor's degrees and doing scientific analysis. You have no right to accountability. Your job is to do the work and bring in the money so that so daddy can manage the money. I got this, right? And so this tells me right there that the organization, at least on the surface, appears to not be real interested in a lot of transparency. Again, no disrespect, but it's it fits under that category of some Umar Johnson type stuff. Like, give me your money and give me your labor. Just don't ask me no questions, or I'm gonna go crazy. So give me your money, give me your labor. If you ask questions, then you are a hater. Right, there we go. Boyce is rapping this morning. I got bars today. Give me your money, give me your labor. If you ask questions, then you are a hater. And so right now, they gave this disposition, this very standoffish position that says, we got something to hide. We don't want you knowing all our business. I don't know much about the. I want to do a little more research on the leadership of the global network, but I don't assume that these are the types of people who are going to take 90 million or 50 million or 100 million or whatever the number is and blow it. I don't see them buying, Gucci belts and gold chains and stuff like that. But what I do see is something where they're kind of like, look, we don't want black people looking too far behind the curtain. We don't want y'all really knowing too many details about what's going on with the money, like who's giving the money and who's receiving the money. I mean, those are the two main issues, right? Or what the overall agenda happens to be. If you notice also, and I'm gonna read more of this to you. In fact, I'll read it and then I'll point out this interesting thing that jumped out at me um, as I was reading it. The foundation said it committed $21 million to grant funding, 21.7 million to be precise, in grant funding to official and unofficial BLM chapters, as well as 30 Black-led organizations. It ended 2020 with a balance of more than 60 million after spending nearly a quarter of its assets on the grant funds and other charitable giving. In its report, the BLM Foundation said individual donations via its main fundraising platform averaged $30.76. More than 10% of the donations were recurring. The report does not state that here's where my spidey senses jumped out. The report does not state who gave the money in 2020, and leaders declined to name prominent donors. I think that's very important. Let me tell you a little secret about money. I know a little bit about that. Money is power. Money is power, and money is typically traded for influence. It's rare that somebody's going to give you a big fat check and then say, well, do whatever you want with it. People just don't do that. Powerful people don't give away their power. That's why they're powerful people. They became powerful by keeping their power, not just handing it out. So if your prominent donors are writing you checks, $1 million here, $5 million there, or helping you to deploy resources so that you can make sure that you're protesting and in full position with a truck full of bricks and fire Molotov cocktails to make sure that you burn down businesses or make sure that you are organized in a certain way. If people are giving you resources on that capacity, typically they're going to expect you to do something with those resources. That's just true. I don't know about y'all. How many of you, if you wrote a check for, say, I don't know, $1 million to your alma mater, let's say, or wherever you went to high school or college, let's say you wrote a check to that organization, would you write that check and just tell them to do whatever they want to do with the money? Or would you be tempted to write the check to say, no, here's what I want you to do with the money. I will give you the money if you do what I need you to do. Right? I mean, I know if I was to give money to my alma mater, which I wouldn't, I went to the University of Kentucky for undergrad, I wouldn't give them any money. I'd rather give my money to HBCUs or to Black organizations or to the Black Business School. But also, in fact, Dr. Alicia and I, we actually have the Boyce and Alicia Watkins Foundation, and we're going to issue some grants to independent Black-owned schools. So just so you know that, we already gave some money to Freedom Home Academy. We're going to keep giving money out this year. But when we give the money, we're not just, we'll either give the money to an organization where we trust that they're going to do the right things with the money, or if it's an organization where we're not sure, we will give the money and give a specific mandate. There'll be a conversation like, okay, are you sure this money's going to go to the kids? We don't want this money going to this thing over here. We need the money going to the kids. So my point is to say, at the end of the day, I would be hard pressed to believe that every single major donor that gave them this money did not have some sort of political agenda or some sort of specific reason for giving them the money that goes beyond simply saying, we want to see the whole Black community elevated. I think they want to target a specific Black part of the Black community to indoctrinate or to integrate them into something, right? And that's a very important subtlety, very important subtle difference here. Integration and indoctrination is not the same as elevation. When you talk about Black people, you've been misled to believe that being closer to white people, being connected to their agendas, getting power within their political parties is the same as getting progress for Black people. You've been misled to believe that when they announce little things like, This was the first black person to graduate from this white university, that's black history, that's black progress. Or this was the first black person to get a certain position at a certain corporation. You were misled to believe that that's black progress, that they're making black history, when really what's really going on is not so much that they're making black history, they're actually making white history. They're not making, when you get their first job, when you're the first senior manager at IBM, you're not making black history, you're making white history. You're making white history because you're showing that this is the first time that white people became intelligent enough to realize the tremendous potential of black employees, black leadership. This is white history, because this is when white folks became smart enough to realize that, hey, wait a minute, having black people on our team is an asset to us. We actually can perform better when we have black people around. Right? That ain't black history to me. Black history is being made by black people who are doing things for black people in black communities across the world. That's where black history is being made. Black history is being made by those people who don't get put on TV. Black history is being made by those people who don't get the fancy corporate jobs because they are too busy fighting power. Black history is being made by the people that are in your hood, working with your kids, that are helping build the Freedom Home Academy and the Muhammad University of Islam and all these other little black schools around the country that are killing the game. That's where black history is being made. Black history is not being made by black people who get hijacked and kidnapped and taken away to the white communities to go serve white businesses or to serve white universities or to serve white institutions. It doesn't mean that we hate white people. This is not anti-white. I want to make sure that's 100% clear. This is pro-black. But because you've been misled on how racism works in America, you think that pro-black is anti-white. Why? Well, because you've unfortunately unearthed a fundamental truth that it took a really long time for us to truly understand, which is that if I'm up here serving black people, I'm taking something away from white people. If I'm in my community, serving my community, I'm taking something away from white people who thought that they owned me. When I'm here as Dr. Boyce Watkins, raising hell with y'all every single day, and y'all know me, y'all know how I do it. I'm in here every day, 5 times a day, talking to y'all. I've been doing this for a decade. I've been doing this. This is not new. I did not start this last week. You could go back to 2012. I was talking to you every day. 2015, talking to you every day. 2018, talking to you morning, noon, and night. I'm the guy where people are like, God, this guy, how does he do it? How does he write so many articles? How does he do so many videos? How does he teach so many? I'm in here because I'm in the community and I'm trying my best to elevate the community. And now pay attention now. Now I'm not saying I should make black history. I don't care about that stuff. That stuff don't matter to me. But but pay attention now. If I'm in here with the black community and I'm talking to y'all every day, and by the way, pissing white people off, by the way, because they become very afraid of me because I'm so honest and direct in my conversation. If I'm serving you, I'm not serving them. When I'm with you, I'm not with them. When I'm building in my community, I'm no longer building in their community. I was on the faculty at Syracuse University for 13 years. I was building for Syracuse University. I didn't feel like they appreciated it. It wasn't a good deal for either one of us because they had to deal with my radical crazy ass, and I had to deal with they old stanky asses. Get mad because I want to go do my black initiative, and you think that progress in black research isn't important. Well, then we gonna fight. We gonna fight, and at some point, there's a point we got to shake hands and part ways. No hard feelings in Syracuse. I go keep doing what you do. That's your institution. I'm gonna go build an institution in my community, not quote unquote make black history by being the first black man at Syracuse University to become the chancellor of the university. No, that's white history. That ain't black history. That's white history. That's progress for you. That's not progress for us. So with that being said, if you go back to Black Lives Matter collecting this money, and I'm going to go ahead and assume that $90 million number is accurate, even though I really question that number. I'd like to know more details. I'm trying to figure out why I feel like there's a disconnect. When I'm hearing about major corporations giving massive amounts of money to black causes, and Black Lives Matter was on the tip of their lips. Like Black Lives Matter was kind of the thing. The NBA, if you recall, the NBA had its players wearing Black Lives Matter t-shirts. I mean, seriously, man. And you're telling me that all y'all raised was 90 million? I need to see the receipts on that. That's not computing. So what this is speaking to, this is where I'm getting at. What this is still speaking to is that there's still a lack of transparency. What it speaks to me is that there were people inside the global network who said, let's issue this report to get these people out of our face. Let's get these people. Let's give them a little something so they can stop pocket watching, as Florida Rider says. Get them to stop. Let's get them to focus on something else, so that we can not have them up in our business. Because my suspicion is that much of this money is not going to black people like you and I. This money's not going to, and I don't want the money. And don't get me wrong, if you're listening, Black Lives Matter, do not send me a check. I do not want your money. I do not need that. But what I'm saying is that, I'm wondering. I wonder what kinds of organizations this money's going to, if this money's even going to black people. Because what I really suspect is that Black Lives Matter operates as sort of the black wing of the Democratic Party. That basically, some of this money being raised is to get certain candidates elected, get the first black transgender, city council member in a certain city or whatever. And I'm not hating on that at all. I mean, that's fine. Fight your battle the way you fight your battle, but don't trick me into fighting your battle when I'm really fighting a battle that's not consistent with who I am and what I believe in. Right? I think the radical left, as Williams Karen is mentioning, the radical left is pretty slick. They're pretty smart. They're very strategic, and I give them credit for that. And I think that one of the things that tends to occur is they say, okay, let's slap a label on something, because people don't read, people don't do research. I took you guys to the blacklivesmatter.org website a few months ago, and the very first thing they're not, you can't blame this on them. They're not lying. The very first thing they said is that our goal was to dismantle the nuclear family, and we're like, what the hell? What does that got to do with with racial justice? Like, that's not, Joe Biden already did that for you. Like, so your job is done. You need to put a check mark next to that box. Dismantle the black family. Check. Like, Joe Biden did that for you in 1994 when he passed the three strikes law, motherfucker. Like, seriously, I'm sorry, but I'm sitting here thinking, really? Like, that's the first thing that comes to mind when you talk about what it means to make progress for the black community? We want to dismantle the nuclear family. We want more black children to not have a father in the house. Like, what does that even mean? Right? And then if you're reading down the list, everything was so, it was so clear. I give them credit. Again, they were slick with it, but they didn't really lie to you. That you just had to go read the fine print. It's like when they give you some bad medication, it's not like that they don't tell you what's in it. You just got to read the warning label. But if they know that people don't read the labels, then they're going to put a big fancy title on it that's going to make you think that it's something other than what it is. So Black Lives Matter, first thing I'm reading is dismantle the nuclear family. I'm like, whoa, okay. All right, let's keep reading. So I'm reading down, and I'm seeing, we want to empower, I'm seeing, transgender and LGBT and this, that, and the other, and no mention of the black man other than the police shootings. Right now, again, if you really know the details and the history of the radical left has always had an issue with the police state. They've always had an issue with authority, with capitalism, and particularly with police. That's something that we have in common. Black people have been harassed by police, mistreated by police, etc. for a long time. That's something that I was talking to you guys about 16 years ago when I wrote a book called What If George Bush Were a Black Man? When I wrote What If George Bush Were a Black Man, all I talked about largely was the mistreatment of black men and the things that happen to black men in a racist society. And so we've been talking about this for a very long time. And so I think it's a noble issue. But one of the problems that I see is that rather than seeing police abuse toward black people as something that really needs to be resolved for the sake of black people, I see it as what I might call a convenient correlation, meaning a convenient opportunity to say, hey, you've got the same problem we have, and we can market you, we can market your struggle, not so that we can really truly improve the condition of your entire community, but we're going to market your struggle so that you can help elevate our position. We're going to ride black people to the promised land of power and wealth, or power and prosperity. And not even so much wealth about money. I'm talking about political power, right? Like we want to get in the White House. We want to control Congress. We want to have we want America to look like the utopia, the political utopia that we envision, you know, and maybe that utopia includes some stuff having to do with gender, sexuality and all that stuff, right? Like, we want to, pass laws that say like 9-year-olds can go get, gender transformations, or that a man can wake up one day and decide he wants to be a woman and then go become an MMA fighter and break some lady's skull, which really happened, by the way. It did really happen, and in Massachusetts, they had the boys that were mediocre track. Did anybody see that in Massachusetts? I think it was Massachusetts, where these two boys were mediocre track athletes, and they both decided they wanted to compete as girls, and now they become state champions. They're breaking records. And so again, I'm not even attacking any of this. I mean, if that's what people think is okay and normal, that's fine. It's just I don't think that way, and you can't chastise me for not thinking that way. Like, you can't come beat me up because I'm not going along with your agenda, because I don't really respond well to bullying, and I don't think anybody does. So what I'm saying to you is that when I see them sort of ranting on and on about the shootings of Black people by the police, I encourage you to consider some of the finer details of that whole conversation. The Black male's going through a whole lot more than just police shootings. In fact, if you were to count up the number of unarmed police shootings of Black men in the United States in a given year, you're probably talking about a number of less than 50, right? You talk about unarmed men shot by the police. The number's less than 50. There are millions and millions and millions of Black men in America that are going through all forms of hell. Most Black men I know did not get shot by the police, but they're going through all kinds of nonsense, right? I know brothers that got locked up, that got sent away by Joe Biden in 1995, who ain't seen their kids since 1995. I know brothers that get fired from their job on their day off. I know brothers that are trying to start businesses to build a family, and they can't start the business because they can't get funding from a local bank. Right? We have conversations on this platform all the time about all the various ways that Black men and Black women are struggling and helping Black folks in terms of trying to find liberation. And it goes deeper than just talking about the one guy who got killed by the police. And the way it's sort of discussed in media is almost to the point of elevating each case. There's usually a case about once every 2 months, and they engage in a very specific marketing strategy to market this particular incident, and in a very symbolic way, with very little clear substantive outcomes at the end of the road. It's like, okay, we're gonna market this police shooting so we can eat off this motherfucker. Like, we want to collect money off this, right? As long as we can, and then when we can't eat off the pig anymore, we're gonna go find a new pig to slaughter and eat that pig too. Right? Like now, okay, now that with the George Floyd money is going, like, we got pictures of, murals everywhere, George Floyd as an angel, and the George Floyd incident becomes the most talked about thing in media. And the whole time the donations are rolling in because we're marketing George Floyd the same way you market Nike sneakers, or the same way in World War II, maybe the way they marketed war bonds and raised money for the war that way, right? You take incidents like this and you use that for extensive marketing so that you can make money, from it, and then you move on to the next thing. So when you talk about the George Floyd thing, I saw money being raised, and there's and I'm not going to say that's completely terrible. I think awareness is good. I think that people that genuinely are really trying to go into the heart of the community and build the community, you're going to use that awareness to draw attention to bigger issues. Like Malcolm X, if somebody got shot by the police, Malcolm X would also be one of the first guys to say, look at what they did to our brother. We need to get together and do something for the community because we're tired of them doing this to us. This is ridiculous, etc. And it probably will involve raising money, because in order for you to make progress on an issue, you have to have money. I don't know who came up with this idea that activism has to be cheap and free, and that the only way you can prove that you're legitimate is if you're broke and struggling and you have no money. Well, the problem, the paradox of that, and I can speak on this as a finance PhD, is that the paradox of believing that poverty is a type of purity is that you can't get anything done in a capitalist society if you're broke and without resources. You can't. You can't get anything done if you are an activist and you out here fighting the power on Saturday and Sunday. You can't get nothing done if you got to go back to work for a capitalist on Monday. If you're trying to fight racism on the weekend and then you got to go work for a racist during the week because nobody will even give you a nickel to get your mission completed, then that's kind of ridiculous. That's silly. So this whole idea of, if you think about the Black Panthers, they had their free lunch program. Well, I actually said very clearly, I said, no, I think it should have been the 25-cent lunch program. And then we would have a caveat to say, look, if you can't afford the 25-cent, we'll give it to you for free. But for those of you that can't afford the 25-cent, you're going to have to help us push this movement forward so we can get the job done. We're not going to have you tell us that you can't afford 25-cent for lunch, but yet you walk across the street to the white man's liquor store and you give him $1. We're not going to have that, right? So I would argue that if they had done that, that they could have put the Panthers on a payroll so that they could focus on getting their work done during the week, as opposed to having to say, hey man, I would be out here fighting the power, but I gotta go work for this. I gotta go work for this white man over here because I need to pay my bills. I need to take care of my kids. If somebody believes in your mission, they'll help you feed your family. That's my point. If somebody cares about what you're doing, then they're not just going to say, hey, brother, I love what you're doing, man. That's really good, man. They'd expect you to go get a check from a white man in order for you to get things done. That doesn't make any sense. How you gonna fight white power when you're taking money from white power? How you gonna fight? How you gonna fight for black liberation when the first thing you do is go into capitalist corporate slavery? You can't do that. How can I tell you that this is black power brought to you by McDonald's and Walmart and Bank of America? That would sound dumb. That sounds crazy. So the reason I want to challenge some of the ideas that come from the left is not because I don't agree with those ideas. Lord knows I'm a black man. I have friends that have had horrible encounters with the police. I have many relatives who've gone to prison. So mass incarceration has affected my family in a more than theoretical way. I'm not sitting here talking to you about mass incarceration in theory. My biological daddy went to prison. My little brother went to prison. I had an older brother who was really my uncle, but he was like an older brother to me. He was my favorite person on the planet. I cried when he went to prison that day for the third time, or when he went to jail. I remember him going to jail when I was 12, and I cried when he went to jail. This is very painful to observe. So when I talk about police and incarceration, I ain't talking about it as some white hippie at NYU. I'm talking about it as a black man who's lived through some of this crap. So if you're talking about wanting to solve the problem, the question is, are you really trying to solve the problem? Or are you trying to serve a different agenda? My question is, are you really trying to solve the problem, or are you sort of using our pain and our trauma in order to raise money or to do whatever it is you're trying to do? Right? Because there's a difference there. You got to know the difference. One good way to kind of understand this is there's a documentary, I hope it's still on YouTube. It was called Poverty Inc. And in Poverty Inc., one of the things that they talked about was they said, look, all these charities that are out here that are allegedly raising money for African countries and third world countries are not helping these third world countries. They said, and you're like, wait a minute, what are you talking about? They're like, yeah, all these companies or all these foundations that do these commercials where they're like, for only $1 a day, you can sponsor a child, right? And they show you the images of the starving African kids, and with flies on their face, and their bellies have become bloated because of infections and stuff like that, right? And they use that image. They call it poverty porn, right? So they use this imagery to get you to pull your heartstrings, so you'll make a donation. Well, you remember, when you make that donation for that cause of the starving African kid, you're not giving money directly to the starving African kid. You're giving the money to the middleman who said, don't worry about it. You don't worry about this. You just give me the money. I'm going to take care of it. We got this. We got this. This is white paternalism. This is how racism works. This is racism from the left. Racism from the right, you know what that looks like. It's cowboys and with shotguns in the back of their truck with Confederate flags saying, we hate Negroes. We don't want your kind out here, son. Boy, you better get up out of here, boy. Right? You know that racism from the right. We talk about that all day long, the Proud Boys and whatever you think about Trump supporters, it's totally up to you. But the racism from the left is a different kind of racism. It's real slick. It comes in the form of paternalism, the way a pimp makes love to a prostitute. It comes in the form of this very childlike, disposition where they say, look, don't give money directly to black people. Give money to us on behalf of black people. Like, don't give money to Marcus Klein, who run Freedom Home Academy and educate black children. Give money to a big white public school with a bunch of white teachers who are going to educate black children. Don't give money to a black business owner. Negroes, they try hard, but they're a little too simple-minded to really run a multi-million-dollar business. They're not equipped for that. Give money to us, and then we'll go hire Negroes. We'll create 1,000 jobs in that black neighborhood. Just give us the money, right? So basically, it becomes one of those situations like where you have a pastor. Some of y'all seen this, where you have a pastor who says that I want everybody to come to church with me and I want us to celebrate God. But any money that comes into the church needs to come into my pocket and I need to be running the church. I don't want anybody else running this church but me, because there is what they in finance, we might refer to this as a transactions cost or a middleman fee, an intermediary fee that is extracted in that process. So when that big organization goes out, and I'm not talking about Black Lives Matter per se, but I am talking about Black Lives Matter to an extent. When that organization goes out and says, look at these terrible things happening to black people. If this makes you sad and you want to support this issue, write a check to us. Two things are occurring, at least two things in most cases. One is there is some sort of intermediary fee where the intermediary is going to scrape something off the top, right? They're going to find a way to make sure they're taken care of first. The NRA did it. That was what brought them down. And in New York, they're moving their corporate headquarters, getting sued, going through all kinds of stuff, because in the NRA, they had a lot of their leadership spending the money on stuff that had nothing to do with the fundamental cause of the NRA, right? They had private jets and taking vacations and all this other stuff, fancy bottles of champagne, just all kinds of whatever, right? Or if you talk about that charitable organization that says we're going to help feed poor African kids with this money, well, when they look at what they were doing with the money, they were taking care, they were trickling some of the money down, but they were taking a big chunk of that money and doing things with it that involve taking care of themselves first. You see, when the pimp collects money from you on behalf of the hoe, it doesn't mean the hoe never gets a nickel. The hoe gets the basic necessities. He's gonna take that money. He's gonna buy her some nice shoes. He's gonna maybe buy her a short little mini skirt. He's gonna get her something to eat, because you can't go home on an empty stomach. When you on the corner, like waiting to sell something, you gotta have some food in your belly, right? So he'll do the basics, but the rest of that money is gonna go to him, right? And if you say, well, I really care about the ladies, and I'm not judging prostitution because Willie D said let a hoe be a hoe, and Cardi B said that being a hoe is a wonderful thing. So there's nothing wrong with being a hoe, but we want to give the money directly to her. I want to put it in her college fund. What do you think the pimp is going to say? You think the pimp is going to say, sure, give the money directly to her or him, right? Because you want to be gender specific here, right? But the pimp is not going to want you to give the money directly to him. The pimp wants you to give the money directly to the pimp, right? So my point is to say that this is sometimes when you see people allegedly fighting for your issues, you're actually seeing a various manifestation or one of the various manifestations of pimpology that occurs all throughout our society. The same thing happens with the NCAA. The NCAA does not want you to compensate the athletes. The NCAA wants you to compensate the white people who control the athletes. And then the athletes will get the bare necessities. Whatever their attitude is, whatever we decide these hoes gonna get, we gonna give them what we think they deserve. You don't get to make that decision. They don't get to make that decision. We're making that decision because we're maintaining our relevance in the process by being the intermediary that's collecting money on their behalf, like a parent does with a child. If you try to give money to a 10-year-old, the mother will step in and say, no, give the money to me. I'll take care of this, right? And it's okay in that particular situation because the mother loves you, right? The mother, who loves us more than our mama, right? But in some cases, but everybody don't love you like your mama. Everybody does not care about you the way your mama does. Everybody cannot be trusted as an adequate intermediary and fully uphold their fiduciary responsibility the way a mother does. Do you understand? So when you're talking about whether it's Black Lives Matter or you're talking about any organization that's out here that says, hey, we want to help Black people, I think the greater question is, do you just claim you want to help Black people, or are you truly empowering Black people? So let me actually break it down and kind of give you a solution on this. In Poverty Inc., they did a great job of explaining that if you really want to empower these African countries, you won't simply give money to white people on behalf of these African countries or give money to a foundation on behalf of these countries. Well, you'll empower the people directly in those countries, right? In Haiti, if you really want to help people in Haiti make progress, you don't go give money to the Clinton Foundation, who claims to be doing things on behalf of Haiti, and you don't know what's going on. You're putting your money in this weird black box where there's no transparency, no accountability, no nothing, right? You go directly to Haiti. You support those Haitian businesses. You help the Haitian business owners to establish companies in Haiti that will empower the people in that country to employ their own and to build on their own. Now, I'm not saying directly you should go to Haiti and do that. I'm saying that there has to be some sort of process where you are sure that the money that you're giving is going to the people you want it to go to and supporting the agenda that you believe in. And so with that intermediary thing, that power of the intermediary, you have two things. One, that money comes in, the people at the top are always going to take care of themselves first because possession is 90% of the law, right? They're like, okay, we got the money in our hand. We're going to make sure we take out our administrative fees or whatever before this money even goes to the core cause. Number two, you also have the fact that the intermediary has power in determining what the agenda of that money is going to be. That's the tricky part about Black Lives Matter. I don't think that the leadership of Black Lives Matter is taking the money and running off and buying Gucci belts and Mercedes Benzes with the money. I don't see them in that light, right? What I do suspect, though, is that when you look at the finer details of who's giving that money, you're going to find out some information that will shine a greater light on what the core agenda of the organization is. And then two, I think there should be some more clarity on exactly who's receiving that money on that other end and what that represents, right? So for example, everybody has a bias. In my bias, if I were given $100 million, from charitable sources, I would probably distribute that money to things that reflect my core values. Like, I'm a Black nationalist for the most part. I'm in that Malcolm X category. There's very few things Malcolm X has ever said that I can think of that I did not agree with. My greatest heroes are Malcolm X, Muhammad Ali, and Harriet Tubman. Those are my three greatest heroes that I respect the most. Well, so that means that Harriet inspires me to believe in Black liberation, unapologetic Black liberation. Muhammad Ali is from Louisville, like I am. I grew up loving this man, hearing stories about him. My grandma went to high school with him, so they tell me real stories about Ali that you don't see in media. I love this man since I was a little baby because I felt like Ali paved the way for people like me, and I love the idea of a man from my hometown going out and really just setting the world on fire. That gave me the confidence to say, if he can do it, I can do it too, right? Malcolm X, I love him because I like Black nationalism. I like the idea of us building our own. I like the idea of us having Black banks and Black businesses and Black families and Black people defending Black people and Black men protecting Black women and Black women loving and elevating Black men and Black children growing up in the cradle of true power, right? And independence. That's my vision. That's my dream. That's what I love, right? Though that's what gets me up every day and that's what I'm all about, right? Okay. So if you gave me money, I could be 100% clear and say, look, if you gave me $100 million and said, spread this money out, I'm probably gonna use that money to support those agenda items, right? Like, that's gonna be my bias, right? Everybody has a bias. So I don't think Black Lives Matter is bad or that they're terrible people because they have their bias, right? Maybe they truly believe that distributing the wealth or their money in a certain way to certain groups is actually helping Black people. I'm not saying that they don't. I'm not taking that away from them. What I am saying is that their bias is different from my bias, right? My bias is more toward building Black-owned businesses so we can employ our own. Maybe their bias is, hey, we want to make sure that if a 10-year-old wants to change his gender, he can do that. I'm not saying that you're wrong for pursuing that. I'm saying that don't lie to me and make me think I'm giving to something that's going to do one thing when I'm giving to something that's going to do another. That's the point. That's where I get off the bus. I don't believe any of us has the right to take away their right to pursue their agenda and to do what they want to do. That's life. That's how the world works. That's when I talk to you guys about money. One of the biggest things I explain to you. In fact, actually, we have a class in the Black Business School called Black Money 101, which is called an Introduction to the Power of Money. Right, blackmoney101.com. Feel free to go take a look if you want to. But in Black Money 101, the first thing I explain is that money is power. Money is influence. Money makes the world go round. So if you ain't playing the money game, then you ain't even a player. If you're not even, if you don't understand how the game of global economic warfare works, then you're never going to be a player. You're always going to get played. And so a lot of the people that run around complaining and struggling economically and don't understand what's going on with stock markets and everything else because they think that that's what white people do, right? What you're really saying is that you think only white people can play the power game and that your job is to be a pawn. And because if you don't have power, you will be a pawn. So what I'm saying to you is at the end of the day, money is power. And so Black Lives Matter, by basically marketing, you participating in the marketing of police shootings in a way that was a little bit of overkill, not because it wasn't important, but because there's more going on in the Black community than just police shootings. There are people, and most of my friends on the right actually are the ones who've been saying this. I have my friends on the left and my friends on the right. My friends on the left, unfortunately, I feel like sometimes they parakeet talking points of white liberals and don't understand how they're being oppressed, right? But because white liberals are a little bit nicer in their oppression, we kind of think that that's where we belong. I don't agree with that. I'm not a liberal or a conservative. So I'll hear people that think it's okay to just talk about police shootings, and they've been convinced that there's something wrong when you go and you do what my friend Maj Toure, Maj was actually in the chat, and I love this brother because he's free, he's independent, he speaks he says what needs to be said. Right? He says, no, Black people need to carry guns. And also we got enemies in our hoods and outside our hoods. Police are not the only people that are killing Black people. We got Black people killing Black people. That's a problem too. We're going to deal with that too. But when I talk to my liberal friends about it, it's like, well, no, Black on Black crime isn't real. That isn't happening. I'm like, well, damn, man, but my homeboy got his brains blown out in front of his daughter. Maybe you don't want to label that as Black on Black crime. We can label it as something else, but I think that his life matters too. So when you say Black Lives Matter and you only talk about Black people who've been killed by the cops, then you're not really saying Black Lives Matter. You're saying that certain Black Lives Matter. Because most of the Black people I know, give me a yes or no in the chat if you know of any Black person who was killed by another person who happened to be Black. I'm not saying all Black people are killers. This is not anti-Black. This is just me asking you a simple question. Yes or no? How many of you know a Black person who was killed by a Black person? Give me a yes or no. and also give me a yes if you think their life matters too. Really, give me a yes or no if maybe your mama or you know a woman that was killed by a man, or a brother that was shot by another brother in the club, or somebody, some guy was sleeping with some dude's baby mama, and next thing you know, it got into some gangster shit, and then you're having his funeral. Some kid that got caught up in gang banging at an early age, right? All these things linked to white supremacy, so we can still have that conversation, but we need a broader conversation. Right? If you're going to talk about police, we need to talk deeper about mass incarceration and prison rape and all these terrible things that are happening to these brothers that are not shot by the cops on the street. You talk about George Floyd because he was killed on the street in public in front of everybody, which was horrible to watch. Horrible to watch. But what you wouldn't be talking about is, what if George Floyd had not died? What if he had lived? What if he had lived and came within an inch of his death, and they dragged him off to jail, and then they put him in front of a jury of all white peers who then found him guilty, gave him 90 years in prison, took him away from his daughter, and sent him away to the gulags where he was going to be beaten and raped by prison guards, and then get beaten and raped by other inmates, be denied access to education, be denied access to healthy food, be denied access to health care, be frozen out of his jail cell every time they raised a little hell, they would do stuff like turn down the temperature so you're sleeping in 40-degree weather and stuff like that, right? And nobody knows about any of this because all y'all can focus on is that one thing that white liberals told you that you can talk about. They told you, they gave you permission. They gave you permission to talk about police shootings, but we do not give you Negroes permission to talk about all the little kids shot in Chicago in inner city violence. You would give you permission to talk about police shootings, but we do not give you permission to talk about all the black men who go off and get traumatized, beaten, and raped in prison. We will give you permission to talk about police shootings, but we do not give you permission to talk about all the poor little children in your community who haven't seen their daddy since Joe Biden passed his crime bill in 1994. That's not genuine to me. That doesn't make sense to me. That's not something I'm going to necessarily be a part of. I'll join you on the police shooting issue, but we got about 25 agenda items to hit. I'm not going to sit here and focus on one. I'm really talking about holistic healing of the community, not this sort of really weird symbolism of picking one incident with one person, and then you bring in, it's the same process. You bring in your attorneys, you got your Ben Crumps and your Lee Merritts, and they do what they do, whatever they do, they get the settlement for the family. The families deserve a settlement. Sure, write that lady a check for $20 million or whatever. That's great. But the problem is, though, that then when you start getting into those conversations, you start making these negotiations where they get the family. They say, look, we'll write you this check for $10 million if you will go out and tell the protesters to go home and tell people that everything's okay and that the police department is wonderful and that we're moving forward and we're making progress when we're really not. And so you're not even, in many cases, you're not even getting real police reform. You're getting this weird symbolism, almost like a celebration of Black death that allows a couple of people to get paid really, really well. And you then move on and you wait for the next one. It's like waiting for the release of a new movie. Like the question is, what's the new Black man shot by the police movie that's going to be released this summer? They release one about once every 6 weeks. They put them out the way that Netflix puts out a new film to get you to become a subscriber. And a lot of y'all have become subscribers because every 6 weeks they put out a new movie and you can't wait to watch. You can't wait until the next police shooting becomes the thing you obsess about, as if one person's life is the same as changing the lives of 100 million people or 20 million people or 10 million people or even 500,000 people. It ain't the same thing. Those are two different things. So I'm gonna kind of shut this conversation down. But what it reminds me of is I remember Joseph Stalin, who killed 10 million, 20 million Russians over the course of his career. He once said something that was really interesting. Joseph Stalin said that one death is a horrible tragedy, but 1 million deaths, oh, that's just a statistic. That's just a statistic. So basically what he was saying is that if I get on here and I'm screaming and hollering about, 100,000 Black men and women being raped and murdered and beaten in prison, you're not going to respond to that. You're like, oh, yeah, that is bad. Yeah, Black men are 8 times more likely to go to jail, 10 times more likely to be to be traumatized in prison, right? Like you're like, oh, yeah, that's just a statistic. Who cares? But if I show you this violent, terrible death of one guy, at the hands of a cop, you're going to be like, oh, my God. That one, I was so sad today. It's just we got to get justice for that one guy and his family. And I'm not saying that that's bad. I'm not saying that you shouldn't do that. What I'm saying is that you're missing the whole damn point. That literally you are playing out your programming. Because I'm sitting there saying, I just told you about 45 kids that got shot in Chicago on Tuesday, right? On Tuesday. Like that's a typical Tuesday, right? Maybe it's not 45, but y'all get the point. It's not uncommon to have one weekend in Chicago where 30, 40 people get shot. I don't know if y'all know this, and that's just Chicago, by the way. They don't count Philly and New York and LA and Milwaukee. I'm talking about Chicago. Right. And I can talk about this till I'm blue in the face, and y'all don't listen to me because I'm Black. Right? You won't listen because I'm not on CNN with some white guy who's talking about one incident with one individual and pulling your heartstrings. Right? What's wrong with you people? What's wrong with us? What's wrong with all of us? We crazy, man. We are crazy. So I think that here's what I'm going to get to. I'll conclude on this, right? I will conclude on this. And by the way, just so you know, for the record, my goal is not to be on CNN. I've been on CNN over 100 times. I do not have any interest in going back. But with that being said, though, here's what I want to say about Black Lives Matter and all the money that they raise. A lot of times, the reason that you're not really making progress. I mean, if you really look at this, think about it like this. If I was to say to you, the criminal justice system was really bad for Black people in 2010, and is it substantially better for Black people in 2020 or 2021? Meaning that Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying progress hasn't been made, but if I were to ask you, would you give me a yes or no if you would agree with the statement that things kind of suck for us in 2010, things still suck for us in 2020 in a lot of areas, particularly when it relates to social justice and criminal justice and everything else. Would you agree with that statement? That that's still kind of a mess, that there's still a lot of tragedy, or that black people were dying in 2010, black people are dying in 2020, 2021. Would you agree with that statement? That yeah, we're still dying. Yeah, it's still kind of a mess in certain areas. Remember that there were I lived 2 blocks from a guy named Barack Obama. I lived literally a block and a half from Barack. I could run to his house in 2 minutes back when I used to be fat. Like even when I was fat, I could have ran to his house in 2 minutes. That's how close he lived to me. And I can tell you in that neighborhood, lots of black kids got killed in that general area, and within a two mile radius from where Barack and I lived, black kids were being shot regularly during his presidency. Like, I don't know if y'all know that or not, but they were, and you got to understand the difference between progress and the illusion of progress. The illusion of progress tends to be built on sort of making you feel that if this symbolic thing actually gets accomplished, that you've actually made real progress. That if Breonna Taylor's mama gets a big check, that's progress. No, that's progress for Breonna Taylor's mama, which I'm happy for her very much. I mean, she's from Louisville, like me. She got killed just a few blocks from where my homeboy got murdered years ago, right? Like, my heart is out for those individuals, and I'm so happy for them. But that's not the same as actually truly transforming the lives of millions and millions of people. And only intelligent people are going to get this. Only strategic people are going to understand this. Only logical people will get this, right? And that means I'm talking about like 20% of our community, maybe 15, right? Because most of our people are driven solely on emotion. It doesn't mean emotion doesn't play a part, but you can't be driven solely on emotion because because they understand you the way a scientist understands a lab rat. They understand you the way a parent understands how to manipulate their child in a certain direction. They understand you, the way a scientist will understand their subject. So they understand your emotionality. They understand how to trigger you. They understand how to make you get all riled up and excited, and they know how to make you scared. They just spent the whole year scaring the shit out of you so that you would do exactly what they wanted you to do. Like that was literally science shows. If you read the studies, Alicia and I, we're nerdy. We're professors. We're supposed to be a little bit on the nerdy side, and so we read studies about how fear is actually the number one motivator when it comes to politics, the number one motivator when it comes to consumerism, the number one motivator when it comes to getting you to watch the news. Did y'all know this? That fear is literally the driving factor behind these news organizations because they need your fear in order to make money from you. They can't make money from you when you're not scared. When you feel empowered and you're like, I'm going to turn off the TV, I'm going to go live my life. They don't make money from that. They make money when you're scared and you're glued to MSNBC, hanging on their every word, waiting for them to issue new orders in terms of how you're supposed to live your life. So I encourage you to turn that off. The only time black people are actually going to be liberated, I'm going to say this and then I'm done. But the only time we're ever going to really know true liberation is that when we understand that liberated people don't live in fear. That's it. So the more fear talk you have, the more slave talk you're doing. And fearful people are the ones that get turned into slaves because a free person free person can't operate in fear. A free person must operate in a way where they can package their fear, put it to the side, deal with it, and move forward and make the courageous decision. Only courageous people get a chance to be free. So you must ask yourself at the end of the day, are we a courageous community or are we a community that's easily scared? And that's it. And I say we're a little bit of both. I think we've got some tremendous warriors and people that are just fearless, and those people are going to lead the charge. And then we got people who are scared to death, sit up under, and whatever the Democrats or Republicans are telling them to do. They go to church and pray to white Jesus so that their lives will get better, and that's their only hope, right? And they kind of sort of live in this little weird bubble of just anxiety. And people like that don't tend to find liberation. So if you want to be free, you got to become free of fear first. Once you become free of fear, you become free of everything. Like once I learned how to not be scared anymore, that's when my life became so much better. That's when I learned to fly like an eagle. I untrapped my wings because before I was scared to even open my wings up. So untrap your wings And then what you'll find is that it's going to be a little bit tough, but you're going to fly, and you're going to be successful. You're going to be happier. You're going to be able to really do things like what I do. I get on here and I say things that I don't know probably would have got me fired if I was back when I was in Syracuse. I don't know. It just comes to me and I say it, right. I'm not deliberately trying to be trying to provoke people. It just comes out, right. And I have no fear of letting it come out because I'm not scared of anybody that's listening to this conversation right now, right. So again, when you get rid of fear, that's when you truly find freedom. Freedom and fear have a hard time living in the same space. I don't know a single person. Think about this. Give me a yes or no. Do you know a single person who lives in fear who is truly free? Hell no. There's not a single person you know who lives in fear who is truly free, because fear itself is a kind of incarceration. So some of y'all need to get out of jail. All right. So anyway, do me a favor. If you could, please hit the thumbs up button, hit the share button, hit the subscribe button. I have the URL, theallblackagenda.com, in case you want to see what my vision of a Black agenda would look like. And it's something that you can implement in your own family. It has things like the $5 a day investing plan, very practical things that you can do to make your life better. Things related to healthy eating, so you can strengthen your immune system as opposed to letting them just pump you up full of expensive drugs. How about we start taking care of ourselves? How about we say no to the Popeyes chicken and start saying yes to the fruits and vegetables, right? Little things like that can help you to you and your family live a better life. I actually have a bunch of financial tips that you can actually apply right now to your family. So there's a lot of stuff there that can help you to find your freedom. So the allblackagenda.com is a great spot to go to. There's a link to Ice Cube's Contract with Black America, a link to content from Nathaniel Jordan, the Minister of Health, not wealth, health. And just a lot of good stuff. Anything I can think of that would help Black people live a better life, I put that on the allblackagenda.com. So feel free to go take a look. All right. So I'm out of here. Hit the thumbs up button, share button, subscribe button before you go. It was great talking to you guys, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care. Be good. Peace.
Here we are, clanting the isms, cataclysm great. Our people out here struggling, trying to make it in this state. Everybody out here doing it, but we the ones who late. Now family, we the ones who gotta delegate. Get that money in the power, never be fake. Stick to co-sign for 3. What did he say? Create jobs, support our own. Educate the same and buy back your home. Got 3 degrees, triple 10. 3 PhDs, now we on the CNN. DBTV, let's talk about negligence. Ignorance is bliss, but we can turn it to intelligence. Believe none of what you hear, half of what you see. Let's break it down here on Dr. Boyce TV. Here we are.